people that are present in our Bible, right? So today I just want to just highlight a lady because we're celebrating Women's History Month in the United States this month of March. And I know, fellas, I know we talk about a lot of men in the Bible, right? And we talk about how mighty the men are and their ups and downs. But I want to highlight today a woman in our text that we all can learn from, male and female. I wanted to share the importance of her life briefly, and because she's not mentioned a great deal in our text, and there's no book that's solely dedicated to her in our Bible, yet we can read and see snippets of her impact, right? And I love this because you and I, whether we are male or female, we want our life to be impactful, right? I know that there's a part of you and there's a part of me that want our days to count, right? We want to build legacy. We want that when we leave this earth, that we will be remembered by our deeds, our actions, right? We will be remembered about our boldness and how we stepped in for other people and how we stepped in for strangers, right? And how we stepped in for family members and how we was made an impact in the life of someone else's that caused them to have a breakthrough in any particular area of their life. We want our life to be impactful for our legacy, for our family, right? For our children. We want our children to have learned something from our life, something good, something tangible, something that they can go forward with in their life. We want our children to gain aspects of our character that is fruitful for their life and fruitful that they will one day teach their children. So now we're having generations behind us be growing off of something that we did in our lifetime, right? We want to be remembered in this earth. We don't want our life to be a summation of years and days with no impact, no memory. No one can think of anything that you really done. No one can think of anything that you did that was significant in the life of someone else's. And that is not who we are, because we love God and we want God's will to be done in this earth, and we want to be a part of that. So we know that we are striving every single day we wake up to do something major, even if that something major is something small at the moment. But I'm telling you, those small things can grow throughout years and become something great. So all the people that we read about in history, they've done these things that to them at that particular moment, it may have been a small thing, right? But we, as years go by, when we read about their life in history, to us is significant, to us is great, to us is bold, and to us is courageous. But to them, it may have been just something small that they felt they've done and not knowing the impact. So we want to do in our lifetime as believers, we want to do a series of small things, right? A series of small things with all the days that God gives us to live on this earth, to walk about. We want to do a series of small things that one day mount up to something big in someone's life. And you may not know the person, you may not even live to see the full impact of your legacy, but it shall breathe and move and have its being outside of you. So today I'm sharing this in reference to this woman who in her life that she thought she was doing something that really, she didn't know the significance of the moment. She didn't know the significance of what her child was going to go to do, and her children was going to go to do in their lifetime. So that is why I want to share this about this woman, because she's not talked about a lot, but what she did was major, right? And this woman was Jochebed, right? And I always pray I pronounce her name correctly. If I don't, please forgive me. But her name is Jochebed, and she's the mother of Moses. Us in church know about Father Moses, right? So with this message, I pray that you find honor. I pray that it's strength, and you find strength, and that you find courage in this message this morning about her. It's sharing the story of this woman briefly, but yet I pray that it uplifts and it garners boldness in us, whether we are a man or a woman, right? And I pray that it fosters boldness in us as parents of today. Whether you are a parent today, you're parenting a child today, or whether you're going to be a parent of tomorrow, or a parent of the future. So I pray that you be encouraged. But today I'm going to briefly share with you about Jochebed. So Jochebed was a daughter of Levi, right? Levi, he was one of the 12 sons of Jacob. So this means that this woman was born into the Israelite tribe of Levi. And as a Levite, she grew up with religious training and knowledge of laws, and she was a Hebrew woman, right? So she grew up with customs of her day, and she was a Hebrew woman. She married Amram, and together they had 3 famous children. Isn't this something? This is just wild, right? So this woman, she grows up in this tribe, she marries a man, and they have 3 famous children. Their children is Moses. We know about Moses. If we've been in church a matter of time, her child was Aaron, Moses' brother, and Miriam. Miriam was the only girl. So 2 boys and 1 girl, Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. And all of her children went on to change the history of the world. Isn't that something? What a blessing, right? We don't know when we have babies that this baby is going to particularly do this, that, or another. I was just reading yesterday morning about Barack Obama's mom, and I always forget that he's Barack Obama Jr. His father is Barack Obama, so he's the junior. So I was reading about his mom, how the story was basically saying this woman, she raised this child, and the way that she raised him, she did not know that the manner in which she raised him, that he will one day go on to want to have to do something to change people's lives. And it was all in his upbringing. He, it was sharing really briefly that his mother, and she moved around a lot as a child, so she was able to live in different states in the U.S. Her parents moved to Hawaii. She didn't want to go, but she went, and then she went to college in Hawaii, met Barack Obama Sr., and they dated, had a child. They broke up. She married an Indonesian man and moved to Indonesia. So Barack Obama was raised a number of years in Indonesia, but in Indonesia, she began to do a lot of things to change the way women were able to provide for their families. So she taught women how to do things in the culture, how to grow food, and how to have entrepreneurship, and all of these different tools that she worked on helping women take care of their families and helping women be a part of the economy. And she did that to the day she passed away, and she was sought out. She ended up gaining her master's, her PhD. She was a well-educated woman and highly sought out woman for world economics, right? So Barack grew up with this worldview, and he grew up watching his mama make sure that other people had what they needed, advocating for people that had lesser than, and teaching people how to build economies. This is what he grew up with as a child. So later on as an adult, he couldn't help but to do the thing that was actually in him that he's seen his mama do. And he grew up and seeing people live without basic things that we feel are basic, that we have to live with here in the United States. So that was so profound to actually read that and see that he grew up with this worldview and grew up learning how important it is to advocate for another person. So when he became an adult, he could not help but to do that. So I was so excited when I was reading that, and that reminded me of this woman Jochebed. She grew up in this tribe, and she grew up, and she did not know, she bore children and did not know that these children would become famous one day based off of what she instilled in them. And I'm reminded of that as a parent, as a teacher, as a community servant, that people lives will be changed just by their encounters with you. And we have the ability and the opportunity to change people's worldview. So let's go in our text. Let's go in our text. If you can just write down or turn in your flip in your Bible to Exodus chapter 1, verse 22. Again, Exodus 1, verse 22. If you can go with me there. And referencing how this woman's children changed the world. Miriam, the daughter became one of the greatest prophetesses and leaders that we can find in our Bible. She was a Hebrew woman leader, and she was very significant in our text. And we know about Aaron, the brother. He served as the first high priest of Israel. And you can find that in Exodus chapter 4. And Moses, of course, we know, led the Israelites out of slavery. So this woman's parental influence was significant. And it reminded me, just as I was reading about Barack Obama's mom's parental influence. And his mom passed away when she was like early 50s. So she never really got a chance to see who he will fully become as president. So, but this woman's parental influence was significant. So if you can, again, write down Exodus chapter 1, verse 22. I'm going to read it from the NIV translation. Exodus 1:22 states, Pharaoh gave an order to his people, and the order stated that every Hebrew boy that is born must be thrown into the river Nile, and let every girl live. So now Jochebed has met, she births Moses, right? She births Moses, and now this decree comes that Pharaoh said, hey, I need to control the population, right? So I need every Hebrew boy, kill him, throw him into the river, let him drown, but I need to save the girls. So it was changing rules at this particular time when Jochebed was carrying Moses, when she birthed Moses. And despite the rules and the changes and all the hardships that the tribes were facing at this particular time, it was little time that she had to make a decision as to what she was going to do for her son. And she's seeking and she's praying, and Aram and Jochebed are praying and trying to figure out how, Lord, help us, give us an idea that can change, that can save our son, with little time that they had. But with this time, she nurtured him as long as she could. She birthed him. But during this time, we will see that she taught her children to be courageous. Right, when she parented Miriam, and Aaron, she taught them how to be courageous. She taught them how to be tenacious. She taught them how to be committed to a cause. She taught them how to be creative, and she taught them, most importantly, how to be people that are full of faith. And now the decree comes, and Pharaoh say, hey, every boy, throw him in the river now. When I was in Egypt, I thought about this text. So I'm sitting and I'm eating seafood, and it is on the river. And I'm like, man, just the thought of the fact that Pharaoh ordered all them little boys to be, all them baby boys to be drowned in this same river that I'm sitting beside eating at a restaurant. I was like, wow, this is something how you can see and think about history. But at this time, Pharaoh gave this order to the people. So now Pharaoh wants the Hebrew boys dead, because he knows that they may grow up potentially and fight against him. So now it's like, you got to take out your competition. So Pharaoh knew that they may grow up and they may rebel against him. They may stand up to him and what he was doing to the people. They may fight against him. But he wanted the girls to live, because he's like, well, I can find use for them in service. He can find use for the girls, right? He can make them handmaidens. He can use their artistic or crafty gifts. He can have them sewing, and he can have them cooking, and he can have them married off, and all of these things he can find use for the girls, but the boys may stand up against them. So he wanted them going. So he decreed that they would be drowned at birth. Like when a woman has a boy, drown him at birth. So in fear of Moses' safety, because now Jochebed has Moses, she hides him in her home for as long as she could, right? She's like, Lord, help us. We're going to hide Moses here as long as we can. And the Bible shares with us that he was hidden there for about 3 months or so. It says that she was able to hide Moses. But Exodus chapter 2, if you can write down Exodus chapter 2, verse 3 and 4 from the NIV translation is where I'm going to read. But Exodus 2, chapter 2, 3 through 4 states, but when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it in tar and pitch. So she got this basket, she darkened it, just covered it up, right? So in the Bible states that then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. Like this woman was trying to figure something out and get creative so that her baby can have a chance of survival. And she didn't know what was going to happen after she put him in that river. But again, she got the basket, covered it in tar and pitch, tried to camouflage it among the reeds in the bank of the river, in the bank of the Nile, tried to camouflage it as long as she could. And the Hebrew word for basket, that the basket that she placed Moses in, when it's the same meaning as in Genesis chapter 6 for the ark. So the Hebrew words for basket is the same meaning for ark, which is the ark that preserved Noah and his family from the water, the judgment of the water. So it's the same terminology. But Jochebed knew that she could no longer protect him. She hid him for months. She nursed him as long as she could, but she knew that she could no longer protect him, that it was going to be found out and they were going to come take that baby and drown him in the river. But she believed that she got an idea from God. She believed that God stepped in and told her what to do with him. She believed in the instruction and the leading of God, that God told her to do this, to put him in a basket, to cover him up, to wrap him, to camouflage him, and let God do the rest. Like, I feel like I might can just stop right there, because as a parent, it will be plenty times in our kids' life that we got to believe that we did what God told us to do. We have to. It's like parenting is an act of faith. It's an act of worship to God. And we just got to trust God. Like God gives us children as gifts. They're gifts to us to mold for a particular period of time. And those gifts are God's gift. Children are from the Lord. So if children are from the Lord, we now have this opportunity to nurture them and to give them back to God. So we now, when we have kids, we have to often present them back to their creator, present them back to the master. So now we have to remember that they are not ours to keep. Our children are not ours to keep. Our children are for us to raise for a particular time, and then make sure that they know the way of the Lord. Make sure that they know what relationship with God is. Are they going to get it all right? No, because we don't even get it all right. But our goal is, or our duty as parenting, is to show them the way of the Lord, that show them that that's where their help comes from. Like, in order for you to live this life, you have to be in relationship with Christ. Everything else out here will fail you. Everything else out here will become nothing. It will become void unless it's given by the Father. So we have this window of time that God assigns us the responsibility to nurture our children. And we got to believe that we have done our best and we have done what God told us to do. And if that is not the case, if God was just left outside the picture, if you don't feel you've done the best, or whatever the case may be, if that's the case, no matter what, you still have to take your hands off at times and trust God with them. So at this time, Jochebed thought that, hey, I've done all I could. We've kept him hidden as long as we can. God, we've been seeking God. We've been praying. And this is the idea God gave, to wrap him in this basket and put him among the reeds along the river. And we don't know what God is going to do, but we got to trust God that he is going to intervene. I don't know how he's going to do it, but we got to trust God that he's going to intervene. And as parents, as even as family members, we have to do the same thing with our family. We got to trust God that God is going to intervene and listen for what God is going to tell us. We got to do our part and allow God to do his part. With our children, we got to listen to what God tells us. We got to show them the way in which they should take, whether they take it or not. But we got to do our part. We have to raise them in the rearing of the Lord, and we have to raise them to have acknowledgement of Christ in their daily life. And sometimes after that, we just got to take our hands off, right? And we got to trust God with them. I'm telling you, if you grew up with parents that love God, what they've done with you is just do the best they've done the best they can, and everything else they're trusting God with you. They're entrusting you into God's care. So that's what Jochebed did. So she believed that she got an idea from God, and it was going to give her son a chance to survive. But she didn't know how it was going to happen. When you read Exodus chapter 2, verse 4-9, verse 4-9 states his sister stood at a distance to see what was going to happen to him. And this is Miriam, right? One of the greatest woman leaders in our Bible. Miriam, she showed one of the greatest examples of leadership in our Bible. A prophetess Miriam. It states that now she's a young girl at this time. It states that she stood at the distance to see what was going to happen to him. She's watching her mother do what God told her to do and place the baby in the river, not knowing if he was just going to drown on his own or what the case may be. But the Bible states that she stood at a distance to see what was going to happen. And Pharaoh's daughter went down the Nile to take a bath. So Miriam, now she's standing back. She sees Pharaoh's daughter coming down and do her daily routine to take a bath. And her attendants are coming with her, and they're walking along the riverbank. The attendants are walking along, looking at whatever's around, because again, their duty is to make sure that Pharaoh's daughter is protected. So she saw the basket, though, among the reeds, and sent her female attendants or slaves at that time to actually get it. So now Pharaoh's daughter, she come to take a bath, and she see this basket, and she's tell her people to come get it. So, and I love that, because isn't that just like God? It's a song that I love that says it's just like God, like to intervene, and to blow your mind about how he intervened. This is just like God, his divine timing. It's miraculous intervention. God being able to step in. I don't know about you, but I've seen God. I've seen the hand of God in my life when I needed the intervention and did not know what was going to happen. But I'm telling you, God showed up. He stepped in, and then I can sit back and I'm like, man, that's just like God, to do it in a manner and only which he can do it, and in timing and only which he can do it. So Pharaoh's daughter discovers this baby at this perfect moment. If she would have been late taking her bath or early taking her bath, or if Jochebed would have questioned the idea that she got from God and did not go down there and place baby Moses in that river at that particular time, everything would have been destroyed. It would not have worked out. He would not have been able to be raised up. Moses would not have lived to be able to become the great man that we know he became. So it's God's timing in everything. When God give us something that we should do, timing matters. We have to do it in that particular time, or it's not going to work out as it is intended to work out. So we can't sit and stumble on ideas that we know are God. We can't sit and stumble and be complacent about things that we know that God told us to do, or a way of life that God told us to live. We got to live the best way we can in reference to how God requires us to live, because timing is everything. So now we go on and we read the text in Exodus, and we know that she opened and she saw that it was a baby, Pharaoh's daughter. Moses was crying and she felt sorry for him. Isn't that the power of God? That this woman can at this particular time see this baby, this basket, get the basket, open the basket, see a baby he's crying at this particular time, and her heart melts. Her heart opens and she feels sorry for him. She had every right to not feel nothing, because her daddy had already put out the decree. She already knew what was going on. She had every right to not feel nothing. She didn't need this baby. She has everything. I'm sure they had other kids running around. She had a right to just go on by herself, go on about her bath, and let her servant serve her. But she felt sorry for him. And she says, this is one of the Hebrew babies. So she knew exactly who he was. She knew exactly what this moment was calling for. So she had a right to say, hey, this is a Hebrew baby. Can you take him to my dad's people? Because my dad already said that we have to do away with the Hebrew boys. She said, this is one of the Hebrew babies. Then, oh my goodness, this story is so good. So then remember, Miriam was watching, and prophetess Miriam was watching, and I'm sure she was praying, and I'm sure she was asking God to intervene. So now Miriam comes in, right? So now she's doing what God told her to do. Even as a young person, as a young girl, Miriam steps in and says to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go? Now, she wasn't even one of Pharaoh's daughter's servants, but she says, shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? So now they're looking at this girl, Miriam. They know that she's from the Hebrew. She's a Hebrew girl. And okay, well, sure, because she knows a Hebrew woman. She's a Hebrew girl. So Miriam says, shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? Pharaoh's daughter, we know, says yes. So then the Bible states, so the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, so now Jochebed is standing in front of Pharaoh's daughter and her attendants. She's standing in front of there because Miriam has brought Jochebed to Pharaoh's daughter, and Pharaoh's daughter looks at Jochebed and say, take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you. Oh my goodness. This story is just full of nuggets, full of power, full of miraculous intervention. She said, take this baby, nurse him for me, and I'll pay you. Now, mind you, her father already said, when you see one of these babies, bring them so they can be killed. We cannot let these boys live. And she was Pharaoh's daughter. She could have demanded that Jochebed nurse the baby for free. She could have enslaved Jochebed, enslaved Miriam. She could have used all of her power, but instead of using her power, she said, nurse him for me and I will pay you. So now Jochebed takes Moses, her own son, and she's nursing him and getting paid. She's getting paid to nurse her own baby, which now her own baby is surviving. Jochebed, again, don't know how long this is going to go on, but right now she's holding her baby. She's taking care of her baby and getting paid to do it. Oh my goodness. This story is wild. So the woman, Jochebed is allowed more precious time to care for her son, to teach him about God. And this reminded me of a recent conversation I had with a friend. And we briefly talked about how God will allow one person in the family to change the family. God will allow one person to change the family mindset. He will allow one person to bring the family out of particular strongholds. He will allow one person to do something in their life that changes the future of the family. And sometimes it takes this one courageous person to allow God to use them. One courageous person, one courageous moment in time. And that submission, that boldness, that desire for change, God backs that up. And that action that they do is backed by heaven. That one person that stands up and say, no, we're going to do our best to do this how God wants it done. And that one person can change the future. And when they stand up for right and when they deal with things that are wrong. But God gave the sister Miriam the idea to step in, use her innocence and her connection, and step in to save the baby that they found instead of him being killed. And then to have this woman agree to allow this Hebrew woman to nurse the baby who she could have enslaved, but she just offered to pay this woman. This allows this family to stay together. So while Jochebed, now while she's nursing baby Moses, you guys, while she's nursing him, this allows her time with precious time with her son to be able to tell him about his family, to tell him about the tribe of Levi, the Levites, to tell him to whisper in his ear about his family lineage, to tell the story of this miraculous survival, right? To tell him repeatedly how God intervened to keep him alive, and about how God has purpose in his days, and how God is rooting for him to survive, and how God is taking care of them. God gave them resources with the Pharaoh's daughter paying Jochebed, and God elevated their life, and God provided safety for them. And Jochebed was able to whisper these things into Moses' ear, and to tell him of these things, and to watch him grow up, and allow him to get to know that his life has a purpose beyond the walls that he find himself in, and that he has a special purpose that was ordained by God. And as parents, that's how we intervene in our children's lives as they grow up. We let them know that they have a purpose beyond the four walls that they grow up in, and we can remind them of how they've survived, and how their forefathers survived, and how their life is so worth living. And we can remind them that they have had moments where God has stepped in, and God has done this, that, or another in their life. And as parents, we got this window of time. You will have a window of time to impart certain things into your children that are necessary for their future selves. And I'm telling you, as they grow up, because I even find myself doing it, as they grow up and as they go about in life, you'll question like, oh, did I tell them this? Did we go over that? Or did we talk about this? Let me try to find a way to squeeze it in right quick to make sure that we have that conversation. But because we have this number of years to have them in our care, and we have to be mindful that God is entrusting us to give them back to him. God is entrusting us to raise them in a manner that points them back to Christ, that outside of us, they should desire a relationship with God. Outside of us, they should desire to go to church. They should desire to pray. They should desire to understand what the word is telling them. Outside of our lives, God is entrusting us to give them back to him. I love that. To give them back to him. And we have a number of years where we can provide certain experiences and certain lived experiences and certain lessons that they will learn, in certain aspects of God that they have to learn, and they will prayerfully grow into later on in their life. And we teach them about their family history and how far we've come. Jochebed used this time to teach, to speak and whisper to Moses, even if he had full understanding or not, about how far they have came as a people, how far they have came as a tribe. And we are to do the same thing, to whisper in our kids' ear and to teach them about how far they've come as a people, how far we've come as a people group and as a generation, and teach them about laws of the land, right? And they should experience disappointments with us. They should experience rejection with us. They should experience anger in our care. They should experience troubles in which they will have to navigate difficult. They should experience making bad decisions in our care, right? And because when I've made bad decisions, we've made bad decisions, and being in the care of someone while we're making those bad decisions allow us the room to right that wrong, and we won't fall apart completely. We won't want to take our life because we made a bad decision. They should experience these difficulties in the world in our care, so that when they're no longer in our care, they won't be stung to a point where they can't recover, where they can't believe that it can be a brighter day. So those are many reasons why we should not spoil our children. It's not wise to spoil them. It's harmful for them as adults. So we have these certain number of years to teach them about faith, law, and God. And if we rob them of those experiences and those teachings, they will struggle for a lifetime. They will always be seeking purpose in vain things, always seeking purpose in temporary things, and not knowing that we're going to have this emptiness inside of us that only God can feel. Right. So we know parenting comes with joy and pain, right? Because kids are hard-headed at times. And they're going to want to grow up and do what they want to do. But so we have these joys and these pains, but as parents, it's our responsibility to allow them to see where our strength comes from. Right. And Psalms 121 verse 1-2 states, I will lift my eyes to the hills. Oh, I love this. This is one of my favorites. I will lift my eyes to the hills from which cometh my help, because my help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. Right. And we have to allow our children to see where our strength come from, and make sure that they know that our strength comes from the Lord. And I'm going to lift my eyes up to the hills from which cometh my help, because my help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. So we are to show people where our strength comes from. Show them where your strength comes from, whether that is a person that is your child, or whether that is a person that's in your family, whether that's a person on your job, or whatever the case may be. You have to show people where your strength comes from. My strength comes from the Lord. So Jochebed, she's making this hard decision. She made a hard decision to place this baby in a massive body of water that stretches across a continent. And she did not know where he was going to land or how long he was going to be in that water. I want to read a quote from a Paulo Coelho. Paulo Coelho stated, and one has to understand that braveness is not the absence of fear, but rather the strength to keep on going despite that fear. Oh my goodness. I got to read it again. And this is a great quote for anybody who suffers with chronic anxiety or a chronic worry and chronic fear. This quote states, and one has to understand that braveness is not the absence of fear, but rather the strength to keep on going despite the fear. Keep on going forward despite the fear. Because oftentimes when we get afraid to do something, we will pause because we're trying to deal with the fear before we move on. We want to deal with the issue that has us unsettled about it before we move on. We want everything to be smooth when we go forward. But this quote reminds us that life doesn't always work that way. And you have to sometimes do some things scared. And you have to sometimes do some things while you're in fear, while you're scared of what the unknown, scared of the unknown future. The quote says, and one has to understand that braveness is not the absence of fear, but rather the strength to keep on going forward despite the fear. Because if there was no hesitation about it, if it was completely easy, everybody would do it. Everybody would do it. Jochebed's daughter Miriam watched her mama make this decision to put her brother in the river, and she watched him be found by Pharaoh's daughter, and she stepped in to have her mom care for Moses. I love this, and this is a quote that mostly pertains to women, but I want to share it. It's by Kavita Ramdas. She states, we need women who are so strong that they can be gentle, that are so educated that they can be humble, that are so fierce that they can be compassionate, so passionate that they can be rational, and so disciplined that they can be free. Oh my goodness, I love that. And I also want to offer to us Psalm 73, verse 26. Psalm 73, 26 states, my flesh and my heart may fail. Goodness. This body may fail me. This flesh may fail me. My emotions may fail me. Your emotions may fail you. Your will may fail you. Your body may act up. Your flesh may fail you. The text states, my flesh and my heart may fail. But God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Oh, I love that. I want to read that again. It's Psalm 73, verse 26 states, my flesh, your flesh, this temple, this body where our spirit resides in, this flesh may fail us. This body may act up. The text states, my heart may fail me, meaning that your heart will fail. The Bible tells us that our heart stores evil things. It stores evil thoughts and evil emotions. Our heart may fail us. Sometimes our heart will have us make wild, wrong decisions. And sometimes we'll be leading through life with our heart and leading through life with our emotions instead of leading through life with wisdom, instead of leading through life with the word of God. The text states, my flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart, and he's my portion forever. He's my portion forever. God is our portion. He's our portion forever. And what he has for me, it is for me. And what he has for you is for you. And what he has for us all to accomplish, all of us have our portion. All of us have this plan that is already laid out for us. All of us has this way of life that we're going to live. All of us has a manner in which God is going to intervene. This is our portion. We have this portion forever because God is our strength. I'm going to read that text one last time. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. I want to read one last text. It is from the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 29. Isaiah 40, 29 states, he gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases strength. Oh my goodness. I'm telling you, just think about Jochebed. When she was so weighed down on the fact that she had this beautiful baby boy and the law changed and now she can't keep him. And now she knows that her baby boy that she's holding, men are going to take him and drown him in a river. And she knows that she's helpless. As a Hebrew family, they're helpless in the rim of Pharaoh. She knows that now all of a sudden she has less rights. All of a sudden her family will be broken up. She not only has one son, she has two sons, but they're now ordering the new babies to be killed. So now she has to discuss this with her family. And now she got to talk to her children that have learned that their baby brother is going to be drowned in a river. Like all of these circumstances, all of these issues, all of the things that we can experience in our life, all of the changes in the land, we're right now all of a sudden in what may be or what is World War III, was intended to be World War III. All of these things we can read about, us bombing so many different countries, and then we sit and we think about our own land and we expect it to always be safe. We expect it to always be free of international war. We can read and look at the domestic wars that are happening in neighborhoods across this country. We can look at how military now are not only our government are not only fighting international citizens, but even the U.S. citizens. So We got all of these things that go on around us, all of the laws that change in our cities and our state, all of the transitions of power, all of the evil that surround us. And we can oftentimes look at the news and feel so helpless. We can look on social media and feel so helpless. But I'm telling you, the text tells me that no matter what is happening in the earth, no matter what customs, laws, situations, wars, rumors of war, no matter what changes in this lifetime, God gives power to the faint. That if I get to the point where I feel that I cannot do no more, that I cannot go no further, I can't hear no more news, I can't press on, it's hard to figure out what I'm supposed to do next. If I feel faint in spirit and faint in strength, he gives power to the faint. The text tells me that he gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might. I'm telling you, to you or me, to anybody we know who feel like their strength is fading, who feels like they need a little help to move forward, to him that has no might, the Bible tells me, and I believe it, it tells me that God increases strength. So when I feel like my strength is low, when I feel like I'm running on empty, when you feel like you're running on E, when you feel like you don't have enough umph in you to keep moving forward, you can't deal with whatever's happening at the moment, God will increase your strength if you go to him. Oh my goodness. And even as parents, our children are going to one day feel like that their flesh and their heart is failing them, and they're going to feel like they are getting tired and weary of doing good, and they're going to feel like their strength is gone and that they have no might, because that's just how humanity works. But I'm telling you, the reason why we as parents got to make sure that when our children are younger, that we point them to Jesus. So when they feel like their flesh is failing, their body is falling apart, and their heart, they've been leading with their emotions and made bad decisions, and when they feel like their strength is failing, they will know that they can go to the word and find strength and power in the word, to know that God will increase them in strength and God will cover them. That's why I love this story of Jochebed, because she continually raised her children to know that their help comes from the Lord. That's why she was able to have adult children that have legacy in this word. Adult children that knew, that saw the hand of God and could not grow up one day and say God don't exist. They've seen him do too much. That they've seen his hand. They've relied on him so much already. So they will never stand up boldly and say they don't believe in God. And that they will increase in strength. So this is what I wanted to share with us today, to do our part, to allow God to show us what to do when we don't know what to do, and to trust in his leading, and to make sure that every opportunity we have when it comes to a child, every opportunity we have to encourage that child, to teach them, to point them back to Christ, so that that child can have a knowledge to know that they are not in this world alone, that they have a life that was already designed for them before they came to this earth, before they was born out of the womb, that they have a purpose, and they are going to live their life and discover that purpose. No, they're not going to get everything right. Yes, they're going to make some wrong decisions, but the battle lies in the fact that if they know where their help comes from, right? So I love this. So this parental influence is significant. And this woman did a significant thing in reference to trusting God, in reference to teaching her children. So I love this. She did good with the gifts that God had given her, and she pointed them back to Christ, where they were able to remain in his care and remember the Lord as they were adults. So we have to show people where their strength comes from, that they can lift up their eyes to the hills, because that's where their help comes from. Their help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. So I pray that this encourage you to be able to be bold and brave, and be able to go out and teach another person to be bold and be brave. And to, when you have the responsibility to encounter children, that you make sure you point them back to Christ, because they're going to need that when they grow up as adults. And that way your legacy will live beyond you. So this is what I have for you. Let's close out in prayer. Dear God, I just thank you for your loving kindness and your grace to allow